What do you remember hating the most being a child? When you went to a family friend's house and you were playing with their children and then your parents said it's time to go, so you'd go and stand by them, but then the adults would remain talking for another half an hour, but you couldn't go play with the kids because you were about to go, so you had to listen to adult talk whilst staring at the coffee table. Edit. Wow, thanks for the replies. It's good/sad to see I wasn't the only one who had to endure this violation of human rights as a child. A lot of people have asked if I'm from the Midwest or Latino, and the answer's no, I'm Australian, but it's very common here. I remember the absolute worst one was when I stayed overnight at my friend's house for his birthday and we were watching this new Pokemon series he had gotten for his birthday. Then my mum came and picked me up half an hour early and I had to sit in my friend's sister's room listening to mine and his mum talk about their childhood and ghost stories for an hour while my friend watched Pokemon in the living room. Worse when you do end up sneaking out under them to go play again. When they spot you, they tell you to come back, and they still aren't ready to go, or your siblings is doing this when we are ready to go. Being talked down to, or people laughing at me when I was telling them something serious. That phrase, "we are not laughing at you, we are laughing with you." But I wasn't ducking laughing at all. False accusations, but when you try to defend yourself you get told to shut up, or even worse, you get punished further. I'm an adult and you are a child. How could I be wrong at all? I remember this so much, so frustrating. Living in a house with just one bathroom and so many people, seemed like someone was always using the toilet or the shower when others needed use of the room. That's why you just go use whatever is available at the same time. I did this. I was the only girl in my siblings. We seemed to have a trust in each other not to peek when one of us was showering. To this day, all but my dad still leaves the door unlocked when we shower, just so anyone who needs to wash their hands or use a mirror can. For me, always just made sure my eyes was open and ready to spray anyone who decided to open the curtains of the bathtub or glad door to the shower box. I think all the kids did this. I remember when my brothers as a kid, when my mom woke us all up to go pee in the middle of the night. Two of my brothers just peed at the same time in the toilet. Saves a flush anyways, and they were both boys. Not getting explanations for things I asked about. My parents and extended family were good-hearted people, but none of them were very intellectually minded, so when I had questions about how things in the world were supposed to work or operate, the answers were frequently unsatisfying, ranging somewhere between "because it just does" to "I don't know," and "I don't know" was sadly never followed up with. But let's find out. I have of course overcompensated with my own children on this to a fault. As my eldest son said, "I'm afraid to ask you what time it is, because then you'll want to teach me how to build a clock." This right here. I was so inquisitive, and having no access to answers infuriated me. I remember getting really pissed at my mom once. After asking a series of questions and getting only "I don't know" in response, I finally sighed and said, "Wow, you don't know anything." Needless to say, that was an whooping I did not soon forget, and it taught me to stop asking questions. Then a few years later we got Google. That my feelings didn't matter. If I was feeling anything other than happy, I had to get over it. If I was crying, I was ordered to stop or get something worth crying over. I hate as an adult now, seeing other adults ask a kid what is wrong. Kid opens up, and then the kid gets made fun of for it being a stupid reason. Then poor kid gets drilled about how they don't know what a hard life is, they're dramatic, etc. I hate that chiz. Being 4 feet 3 inches with the voice of a tuba. This made my day. Removed. I'll hate him with you if you join in with me and despise Sarah Payne for lying about me in school and getting me told off by the deputy head. The cruelty of other kids. +1 for that, mate. Sorry you experienced it as well. It got better for me. Hopefully for you too. Family gatherings. Had a large extended family as an Indian and there were gatherings and functions almost every week. Coming of age, housewarming, marriage, first birthdays called for gatherings between 100 to 2,000 people. You had to dress up and meet people that apparently cleaned your snot as a baby expecting you to remember that they did so. It was horrid. Kinda miss it now though. Yeah, I miss gatherings too, and it's sad to me to realize that's a time I can never return to. There was something about seeing our house bustling with older people you don't know, all chatting, eating, and laughing in small groups throughout. You might not know them, and are nervous when they first arrive, but they are family friends, so you eventually trust them. Their young kids would be playing with toys and spinning each other with an office chair. Then the older kids would be playing upstairs on the TV because one of them brought a PS1. I never knew it as a kid, but I enjoyed the company of strangers to me. Worst part of it was they started to filter out. The house slowly becomes more quiet, and you try looking for a stranger or older kid that was kind to you, but they have already left. My dad stopped doing those gatherings when I was around 12, and I always asked my mom why, but she never gave me a full answer, though I suspect why as an adult now. I still have those vivid memories when I was a kid. People making fun of me, grown up included. This is a big one for me too. It seems like the previous generation of adults loved to tease and make fun of us. I think maybe they thought we would grow up with thick skin. It doesn't work. Along that same vein, when adults would tickle and wrestle with me until I felt scared and overwhelmed was probably my most hated thing about being a kid. I had an uncle that would pinch my nose so hard it would make my eyes water. I hated it so much. Some adults are so immature. Edit. I'm glad we could talk about this issue. I had no idea so many people shared my anxiety about being pinched and tickled. Let's do better for our kids. What I remember most was some adults not treating me like a human being just because I was a child. I try so hard with my own kids to step back and treat them as fellow humans and not just children. A 4-year-old needs their own space and gets frustrated and gets angry in exactly the same way I do. They just don't have the vocabulary and awareness to express it. My job is to help them express it, validate it, and teach them how to deal with it, not just to tell them to stop whining. I was on my pediatrics rotation in medical school and saw a little kiddo having a meltdown in the waiting room. The mom was getting flustered and frustrated. Then one of the peds residents was walking through the waiting room. He got down on one knee, and instead of scolding the child like the mother was, he asked the little kiddo what was wrong. The child said he forgot his favorite toy at home and was afraid something would happen to it. Instead of telling the kid that his toy was safe and that he needs to stop crying, the resident asked his mom if anyone was home. The dad was. The resident asked the mom if she could text the dad and ask if the toy was safe. Less than 5 minutes went by when the dad sent a picture with the toy and all was well. The little boy was all sunshine and rainbows after that. All it took was just empathizing with a child and putting yourself in the mindset of a 4-year-old. To us it seems so trivial that he left his toy at home, but to him, that toy is his whole world. He has spent thousands of hours with it and probably has a special bond. I can't imagine how it would feel to just have that dismissed by the parent when they tell you to just calm down and be quiet. Being made to eat foods that I couldn't stomach, or which were in amounts that were too much for me to handle. You can't leave the table until you finish everything on your plate. I hated wasting food, but I developed clever ways of sneaking unwanted food away and disposing of it without a trace. Thankfully my parents didn't pull the "there are starving people in Africa" routine, because my answer would have been "so give it to them." I second this. I remember vomiting after being made to eat coleslaw by my father, and I still can't stomach it. Also, whenever I would visit my grandmother, she insisted I drink a glass of milk with every meal, and she made me sit at the table until I drank it all. I couldn't stand it, and to this day I hate milk, although some milk products are okay. My dad was a drunk with opinions. He would keep me and my brother up till late and scream lectures at us about history or ethics, or how much he hated our mom. He would wake me up in the middle of the night and talk at me for hours if we got an answer on Jeopardy wrong that we should have known. Lecture. Such angry drunken lectures. He would throw things at us, hit us on the head to wake us up. I hated it so much. He died of liver failure when I was 17, and 22 years later I can say him dying was the best thing to happen to me. Nowhere near as traumatic, but my stepfather was heavily verbally and physically abused by all his family members save one, and never got counseling or therapy for any of it obviously. There were way too many times I, as a child under the age of 14, got into a screaming match with my stepfather that I didn't want to be in and had no idea why he was yelling and could only be heard by yelling as loud as he was while trying to ask what I had done wrong. It cooled off a little during my teens because I stuck up for myself a hell of a lot more and learned how not to engage or show emotion so things couldn't escalate. Anyways, it wasn't until after he had to be put into a medically induced coma for at least 3 weeks and had to be resuscitated a couple times, coming out as a completely different person, that we could actually foster a relationship. Before that, I initiated zero contact a year before, until he went into rehab and got therapy. That hospitalization was the worst thing to ever happen to him, but the best thing to happen to us. Being told no without any explanation. That's just going to make me do it to find out myself. Why? Because rage. Being so sad that I wanted to kill myself, but being too young to know how suicide works. Instead I cried under a tree and begged God to make me dead. We had a neighbor and her sister over. The younger sibling was hitting me with a belt, which sounds bad, but it was very soft, didn't hurt at all, and just made a funny noise. Of course it made me mad, so I grabbed the belt and slapped her with it. Had a massive welt on her back. The mother showed me the next day, and I felt so bad I was gonna commit suicide by shoving a pencil through my chest. Prob wouldn't have worked anyway. A child's remorse is greater than most adults. Children can't understand what their emotions are or what they mean. In teens specifically, grow up and be more independent. Gets a job and saves to eventually move out one day. You need to come home sooner. I don't care if you have a job, I'm still your mother/father. My dad did this to me constantly in high school. It was so frustrating. It's like you want me to act like an adult, but you still treat me like a kid. The lack of freedom. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things that I wanted to. I relate to this, but my lack of freedom wasn't because my parents had a lot of strict rules or anything. It was just that we lived in the middle of nowhere, and my mom hated driving, so I felt guilty asking her to take me places. Adults not taking me seriously when it'd say I was full/needed a wee/didn't feel well. We don't tell adults they have to eat if they're full, or to just hold it if they need the loo. Ducking, yes. Seriously, why force basic needs? Yes, I peed less than an hour ago, but I need to go again. Shiz happens. I drank a full bottle of water. No, I can't finish my plate. I'm full. Well yeah, I'm going to sleep all afternoon and not sleep tonight. You overfed me. Your problem. My mother stigmatizing me for loving pink, playing the flute, wanting to be a nurse, etc. Going by your username. You are living your best life wearing pink nurse uniforms and playing flute in your spare time. If so, that's lovely. Having to lie to stay out of trouble. If you tell the truth, I won't get mad. Sure thing, mom. Here's what happened. Are you ducking kidding me? What the actual duck possessed you to decide that that was a good idea? Go to your room. Don't come out until tomorrow. But mom, it's 9 in the morning. I don't give H's. I don't want to see you for the rest of the day. As a young child, my mother forcing me into social situations despite my extreme shyness. She always hated the fact I was shy. As a teen, my grades were never good enough. Even if I had an A, it could always be a higher A. If my grades dropped to a low B, I would be drug tested, and she would tell me she was surprised when I came back clean. My mom forced me into social situations that I hated. She would always say, "Lord off with the woods. You have to look people in the eye when you talk to them. You have to speak up so people can hear you." I hated it, and it felt like a rejection of who I was on some level because I was shy too. But, in retrospect, it was my parent trying to teach me social skills and social etiquette. And I've made a living off my social and communication skills as an adult, so it was a valuable education. The thing is, I feel drained by social interactions because it is something I have to really work at to this day. It takes a lot of emotional energy for me to be charming and confident and sound like I'm not a moron. It isn't exactly artifice because it is me doing the talking, but it feels like a performance in many ways. But I worry that if I don't put all that effort into being charming, People will think I'm a boring dullard and will be ignored. Maybe if I move somewhere new and start fresh as a quiet person, I could get away with it. But if I suddenly go from gregarious and engaged to quiet and reserved, people are going to think I'm an a-hole or that there is something wrong with me, as from their perspective, I will have changed radically. What do I tell them? I'm tired of pretending to be sociable. You can invite me to things, but I may not talk much. That seems uncool. The beatings when dad was drunk. The beatings when dad was sober. Santa Claus. I threatened to shoot him down with a missile launcher. Ho ho, homicide. Going to bed when other kids are still playing outside. Oh my god. This sucks so much. I would have to eat dinner and go to bed while my friends were still playing video games. At 11 years my bedtime was 7:30. Being treated like an imbecile while you were just lacking some context. Happens to adults as well. The fact that no one ever liked me unless it was convenient for them. I was nothing but a burden for everyone around me. I was constantly abused emotionally at home and abused emotionally and physically at school. No one cared about me. I'm sorry. I had a similar experience as a child. I hope you have people who care in your life now. When you're the younger child, you're expected to be the spoiled one and getting everything. Complete opposite for me. My sister could get away with murder. That's so true. My youngest brother got all of us in trouble, especially me, because I'm the only girl. Being a girl and the only girl, there is different expectations than being a boy in my household. To this day, my mom still spoils him and all my brothers. There are still days when I'm making dinner for everyone. Didn't want to. Mom told me take over while she goes do other stuff. And I hate to see when my brothers come over. It's just them that show up. Their spouse went to their parents' place and I know they are guests. But when they can act and use whatever they want as though it's their own home again, I think they need to think about, does my sister need help? Or at least ask, even if you really don't want to help or know how to help. Boys can be boys. It's wrong for me for being the only person working that day and come home to have a seat. But it's okay, my brother did nothing all day but sit at the TV and just lies on the couch when dinner can be started to be cooked. My oldest brother and I can fully relate in how we experienced such similar experiences as a child. He's the oldest. I'm the only girl. Getting my hair combed after bathing. Half an hour of ouches. It's because a lot of people still don't know how to comb/brush hair. You need to start at the bottom, otherwise you're pushing tangles at the top of the head right into the other tangles. Getting chastised for falling down accidentally and getting scrapes. Ended up hiding one because of fear and got a permanent scar from it not healing properly. I used to be a teacher and had to monitor recess. I had 2 hard and fast rules. Come to me the minute you get hurt or if someone else hurts you, words or physically, and no screaming unless you actually were being hurt. I don't want to be checking on a screaming child because she wants a ball others are using while another screaming child has fallen off the slide. When the adults were talking to each other and I wanted to say something, but I had to wait until they finish so I don't interrupt them. This enrages me. My mom and dad will start talking about things, mostly politics, but that's my interest, and I'll have something to say, but it's always why are not int high sc on voas at ion. I won, and that's how conversations start. Being treated like anything I say was invalid or stupid. Yes, I'm scared. I'm a child. I can be afraid of the men running around outside with guns wanting to rape and kill me. Like especially when we moved to Australia for safety. Just all the adult thinking I know nothing and that life can't be hard. I just remember feeling trapped and worthless. Even these days people pretend like they are the choose. Well, I'm so happy for you, since you don't get panic attacks when you are in a room that you feel you can't escape from. Sorry, this got a little off topic. It just always gets me emotional, and so I just start talking it out. Keep talking it out, sweetheart. Big internet hugs from me. People telling me that I shouldn't put so much effort into what I'm doing. I'm now in year 12, and I'm no longer motivated to be able to care or do anything now. Yo, you need top at moreffort into sc all. being forced to move every couple of years, and having to make all new friends with what I would later come to learn is called crippling social anxiety. Military? My dad would always be smoking, and the entire house smelled like smoke. I hid his cigars. He got mad at me. I told him to stop smoking. Got some blown directly into my face. He even smoked in the car when I was sick. Nothing is worse than barely being able to breathe and still being forced to smell smoke. As an asthmatic, this hurts on a personal level. I don't know if hate is really the right word, but when I was really little, I was terrified of my dad. My earliest memories of him are being woken up in the middle of the night when he got home, smacked around a bit, and sent off to bed again without so much as an explanation. "You know what you did," he would say, but of course I didn't, because why would I ask if I already knew? I put a ton of work into trying to keep him happy and not pissing him off, but it didn't always work. I say hate might be the wrong word, because I didn't really know better back then. I didn't start hating him until I met kids and parents that had better relationships, which wasn't until high school. Until then, that was just how it was, and I didn't really question it. Same with me, I was always afraid of my dad. It was always so tense when he was home, and I only ever felt calm when he was gone. I remember once, when I was 12, I spent the night crying because he was coming back from one of his trips the next day. He would punch me whenever I did something he didn't like. Once I tossed him a candy bar that I saved from my Halloween candy for him, and he slapped me across the face because he didn't appreciate me throwing cheese at him. I spent most of my life in my room because I was made fun of at school and had no friends. I guess it was too obvious how desperate I was to have one. He always made fun of me when I was with him. He would take me fishing and call me bitch because I was sad we didn't catch anything. He'd laugh at me and call me dramatic when I tried to tell him about the bullying. What makes me mad today is that he is going to a therapist because his dad treated him the same, and that now he tells me loves me and that he's proud of me, but I hate him. I won't ever trust him ever. I moved 2 states away from him, and all he ever talks about is how he wishes I would visit. I hate it. How can he expect to have the best of both worlds? The complete obedience of a kid who is afraid of you, and then friendship of the kid, as if nothing happened. If you want to be my friend now, you should have been there when I needed you. I had nobody. What scares me today is that I sometimes act like him. I treat people badly and hurt people, so that's why I can't have kids, because I can't live with the idea of my kid hating me like I hate my dad. Being told no without explanation. Don't drink/smoke/break/touch that. Why? Just don't. If your child asks you why, and you can't give them an honest or legitimate answer, then they are going to do exactly what you told them not to. Yes, kids are building their brain. They will find out why one way or another. Being regularly beaten up by a dozen girls in primary school at once and no one helping me. I didn't fight back. Also being beaten up regularly by my father and no one helping me. I don't know what to say about your father, but, when you're male, getting beat up/bullied/hit by girls was always so frustrating. They can hit you, but you can't hit them. I remember one time in middle school when a girl, f you, Megan, punched me. I punched her back. She went running to the teacher. Teacher acknowledged what happened, and I still had to stay after school because the person who hits second is worse than the person who hits first. Like, what the hell? Feeling like I'm invisible when I don't want to be, but want to be and can't. When my dad asks everyone's opinion, gets to me, and just jumps over to the next person, or goes on about what he thinks, even in one-to-one conversations. Why do people even ask then? Haircuts. The barber my parents would take me to was a total scumbag. Would always without fail insult me throughout the process, and when they were done he would try and get the other workers involved to make fun of me as well. To this day I hate getting haircuts because of this. Oh, I hated haircuts. Not because the people were bad or anything. I'd always just leave with an ear bleeding or something. Getting into trouble for something I didn't do. When I was 7 or 8, I was accused of throwing my older sister's clothes around her room. My stepmom was pretty upset and asked if I had done it, which I replied to with a truthful no. She then refused to believe me and had me do a wall sit. I think that's what you call it when you have to squat against a wall. But anyways, she made me do a wall sit until I admitted that I threw the clothes, which I never did. About half an hour later, I still wasn't giving in, and she got tired and threatened to call my dad. I was really hoping my dad would take my side this one time, because my legs were burning. When she called him, he said that I had to stop trying to make them go against each other, and that he always had her back. She eventually gave up on the wall sits and just forced me to stand in the corner. When my dad got home, we started the whole process over. I eventually gave in and got on a whooping for lying. Having a bedtime. I don't think I ever had that. It was never an issue for my siblings. It sucked for me because I had my own room and everyone else had shared a room, so had someone to talk to until they fell asleep. I liked it when my parents came into my bed to sleep with me. I used to always get mom to sleep with me. I don't think it was to talk, but from being scared of the dark. Maybe I was the first to go to bed, so I don't remember about being told to go to bed. Parents making me buy my own stuff, then taking it away, saying you're too young to own anything. When I got in trouble, the government wants to know your location. Being called veggie. My parents were older than other parents. Mum was 2 months shy of 39. My father was 62. Back when it was almost taboo for older couples to have children. My mother's first, my father's third. I was born with developmentally delayed motor skills. I had terrible knock knees and was putrid at sport, though I loved it until I was in my mid to late teens and finally had a coach who saw my people skills and helped me become an outstanding basketball player. The kids in the street and their parents called me veggie, as in vegetable/retarded. I was always a highly intellectual child. It's something that they couldn't see, so they still called me veggie. It wasn't until one of the parents became a leader at Cub Scouts that she saw how intellectually above the norm I was for my age. Having said that, all these years later, I have 3 degrees and spent significant years in my early career working for 2 professional basketball teams, one in Australia and one abroad, and am now super compassionate and have a belief in young people who are intellectually or physically delayed in their growth. This has helped understanding my girlfriend's son who has a multitude of development delays. When the other kids didn't include me in their games, because one kid I got in a fight with convinced the other kids to not play with me because I'm a bad person. Mayo. Having to go to church. I personally hated church and I didn't believe in God even as a kid, but my mom was extremely religious and made me go. Being bullied for being from Africa and just loneliness. Pea soup. I once had a battle of wills with my parents that lasted 3 hours over that ducking cheese. Irony is, I make pea soup now myself and give it to my reluctant kids. But I take no for an answer. Dad. Edit. Typus. Yuck. We had the same with bean soup, with huge pieces of bacon fat for flavor in it. Christmas. Fake gifts in place of the cheese that really mattered. Christmas is forever stained. It's beginning to look a lot like duck this. Everybody making fun of me for being skinny. Ducking pieces of cheese. Teachers, relatives, even friends. My teachers would make fun of my skinnier arms in front of the whole class. I didn't know how to get bigger at that time. Always got chisty advice. Some people are just naturally skinny. There's nothing you can do about it. Course, now that I'm an adult, I started working out and feel more confident now than before. Other children were taking advantage of me. Irisha 22 sorry. It sucks because then adults would just say, oh, well they are just being kids. No one should be treated that way. Everything being about what's best for my future and ignoring the importance of a child's quality of life and mental health. When people would say, you'll understand when you're older. Yeah, this annoys the hell out of me. Like, do I turn 18 and just learn to do taxes? Being abused. And if I stood up for myself I would be kicked out. Then when I would go stay at a friend's they would make me come back home. Rinse repeat. Lack of control. Most adults didn't give a chiz about me or my ideas since they only saw me as a child. Having to spend weekends either babysitting my twin brother as early as 6 or doing hard work around the house/cabin. and not having fun like most kids do. My family has a cabin that I've never fished, swam or boated much, if any, at. I've never played in a play area at a fast food place because I had to sit at the table and make sure no one tampered with or threw away our food while my brother played. Basically, I spent most of my childhood being the responsible adult and missed out on a lot of kid stuff. Babysit your twin brother? People thinking I'm always lying. No one believing what I'd say as a child really ducked me up in the long run. How my parents would correct my bad behavior without telling me why or what I did was bad. Still feeling anxious in certain situations today. Too short to ride the amusement park rides. I was shorter than average, and I'm still short. But at least I can ride the rides now. Having to share a bedroom. I come from a large family, so I never had my own room. Moving out for uni was such a big deal for me. I feel your pain. I've never had my own room, and am only like a year away from moving out. One of the reasons I really want to. Having dreams about breaking a pewter and filling my pockets with candy, only to wake up and have no candy. It sucked. And it happened all the time. Being laughed at for being that fat kid with freckles. The fat kid with freckles is now an adult woman with ducked up eating habits who will refuse to eat in front of anybody, wearing heavy makeup on a daily basis so that my freckles won't show. But freckles are attractive as hell. Duck those haters. Great tasting cough syrup. It took me a long time to enjoy grape flavored things. Same for me, but with it being cherry flavored. Being told that my issues weren't important. As an adult, I'm choosing to learn a lot about the ways I behaved growing up, and it turns out that I probably had some pretty severe developmental and behavioral issues. When I would try to articulate what was happening and the way I was feeling, I was always told that adults have real problems to worry about. And when I would act out or inconvenience my family at all, my mom would explode on me. It caused me to be extremely meek as a child, which caused some people to take advantage of me in ways I don't talk about. Not being believed. Especially since I had basically zero history of lying growing up. I had a terrible pain in my teen years and went to my parents about it. They just laughed I off and would accuse me of basically lying and over dramatizing it. They refused to let me see a doctor. I cried in bed because the pain would wake me up sometimes and there was no one to turn to. Tried going to the doctor myself by Chisty public transport. That took 2 hours to get there when my parents' car would have had me there in 15 minutes, only to be told that as a minor I couldn't see the doctor without a parent's permission. Finally it was my birthday and I was still in pain, so when my dad asked what I wanted for my present I said I'd like to see the doctor. My dad rolled his eyes but eventually relented. When I got to the doctor's office, my dad told the doctor that I was being ridiculous and making my pain up, so the doctor immediately believed him and didn't take anything I had to say seriously. Long story short, a couple of weeks later the tests came back. Cancer. And I was told that because I waited so long to see a doctor it had already started to spread. Ouch, did they apologize ever? Being dragged to church. I absolutely hated it. I never believed in any of it and would sit bored out of my skull. It was only 75 minutes, but it felt like it went on forever. I'm a teenager still, but so many of these comments are super accurate. The worst for me, which I haven't seen, is being told to grow up and then being told I'm still too young depending on their mood. I'm 17 now and I'm still too young to talk with the adults, but then if I get upset over something or do something wrong the standard response is grow up. Not being listened to or treated like I wasn't a human being. I made a promise to myself around age 10 that I would never forget what it was like to be a child and that I would never become too adult to never apologize to a child if I let them down. I'm 31 and I have kept that promise. I treat children like my equals and I respect their thoughts and feelings. My sister grew up to have the same ideas and is raising her child like they are a team instead of my sister being the commander and her kid being the soldier. I don't have children myself for many different reasons, but the kids I have been up and have told me they like me because I talk to them and not at them. It has helped shaping me into a better person, and I feel like I owe it to that 10-year-old girl who begged her future self to never forget that children are human beings too. Going to the barber and school dress code. Both are related. When I was a kid, my school have a dress code that pretty much only allow buzz cut for boys, as long hair is a sign of delinquency. My dad saw nothing wrong with that, so he routinely take me to one of his mate who's a barber. This guy just don't care. He would yank my hair really hard with his chisty combs and scissors. I naturally develop a hatred for barbers ever since. When I turned 18, I just grow my hair out as long as I want. I also started cutting my own hair as well. Never been to a barber once in the last 10 years. I was forced to sit at the dining table and eat whatever was cooked that night. Don't quite remember why. Turns out, being allergic to stuff makes you not want to eat it. One time I was crying because I didn't want to eat whatever it was, and was also told I would be sitting at the table until it was time to get ready for school the next day if I didn't eat it. I don't get why parents force feed their children. If a kid doesn't want the food, just let it be. Kid goes hungry worst case scenario and will be more eager to eat next meal. Rape. Living in a chiz hole. I remember crying tears of frustration at the end of church because I was hungry and we had been standing already for 15 minutes while Just As I Am was on repeat while the preacher begged for just one more person to come to the altar. I just wanted to get home and eat and change out of my uncomfortable church clothes. After the music ended, I knew it still wouldn't be over because the preacher would then make us come up and pat the backs of those that came forward. My grandma licking her thumb and wiping something off my face. Nap time in play school. They need to give high schoolers nap time. Liver. What lol. Not having any control over my environment. My mother could scream at me and my parents could hit me if they wanted, but I couldn't do either back. As the daughter of a hoarder, the amount of stuff all over the house was frustrating too. No area was just mine. Even my room was shared with a ton of my mother's crap that I was never allowed to move elsewhere. Adults always said you're gonna miss being a kid. That's bullshit. I'm 29 and I don't miss any part of it. Not being an adult and nobody was taking me serious. Living in an alcoholic household while going to school daily and pretending to be like all the other kids. And to think today it's called neglect and agencies are called in to help. 4 sisters' lives forever changed as we learned to deal with our parents' love for the bottle. But thank God today is a new day. When I was a child I wanted to grow faster and wanted to become an adult, so when they told me that you are still a child or that you won't understand and then expect maturity and understanding at the same time, that annoyed me the most. Like I simply purely hate that. Oh my, you watched until the end? That's fucking awesome, dude. Thanks for watching.